Hi friends, I wonder if I'm the only one who feels like the world's gone completely mad. Perhaps the world isn't quite so crazy after all, if it has room for something like that. In the cozy Dutch village of Hogway, on the outskirts of city of Wisp, 152 people live. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary village. Residents stroll along tidy streets, sit on benches by fountains, go into shops and cafes, and chat with each other. But there is one unique feature. All of them suffer from dementia. This village was created especially to give its residents the most precious thing, the feeling of a normal, calm, and joyful life. Here, no one feels like a hospital patient. People live in small families of 6, 7 people in comfortable houses together with the caregivers. Each house is decorated in a way familiar to the inhabitants' memories. Some live in the atmosphere of 1950s, others in the style of 1970s or 2000s. Patients can freely walk the green streets, enjoy garden trees and fresh air. The staff are always nearby, but not in white coats. Instead, they play familiar roles: cashier, cafe customers, shop clerks. All of this creates an atmosphere where elderly people feel not like patients, but like full-fledged residents of a small town. The village is designed so that no one can get lost or accidentally wander too far. The houses form a safe perimeter. If someone tries to leave, the staff gently and kindly guide them back. This approach not only helps elderly people preserve peace and joy, but also release enormous stress from their families who often cannot provide round the clock care. And importantly, Hogway costs less than keeping patients at home. Here, people have the most important thing: a sense of safety, care, and respect. This place was created not for illness, but to give elderly people a warm, fulfilling life. Fox News reports on a case that sounds like an episode of ER, only short on $5 budget. In New York, 58-year-old Ilsa Ten tried to work as a cosmetologist after deciding that a license was just an unnecessary formality, while a syringe with silicone and a bottle of super glue made a perfect, adequate professional cosmetologist's kit. In March 2009, she was enhancing the curves of 43-year-old Fiordalisa Picardo right in her Bronx kitchen. The silicone injections caused excruciating pain, but instead of medical help, the specialist, together with her client's daughter, simply patched the holes with a paper towel generously soaked in cyanocrylate. Because, as we all know, if it holds pipes and shoes, it will surely work on the human body too. The next day, Picardo was hospitalized and died of heart failure caused by silicone particles. Oh, surprise, it turns out superglue is not a medical treatment. A month later, Ilzatan was finally arrested. The investigation lasted more than 2 years, and as the result, the cosmetologist of the year was found guilty on involuntary manslaughter. She was sentenced to 4 years in prison, apparently about as much time as had spent watching do-it-yourself plastic surgery videos on YouTube. What interests me most is in that story, is the logic of the victim, Fiordalisa Picardo. What exactly was she thinking about to agree to undergo surgery in her own kitchen with an underage daughter assistance, a very dubious plastic surgeon? Of course, it's understandable that Fiordalisa wanted to improve her youthful standard at 43. But I wonder, was it just a dumb desire to save money or a complete lack of any knowledge about bacteria and antiseptics? Sadly, we will never know. It turns out that statistically, women with wider hips are less picky when choosing partners. Researchers from the University of Leeds, UK, decided to devote themselves to truly important work, measuring women's hips and comparing them with the number of their partners. Apparently, cancer or Alzheimer research grants that year went to other labs. In the end, they concluded that more generals in the pelvic area women are more likely to allow themselves sex without commitment, while the narrow-hipped friends supposedly prefer stability and long-term relationships. Great news for all men who can now, instead of romantic dinners and long courtship, simply arm themselves with a measuring tape and immediately estimate the prospects of their first date. There is, however, a small catch. The objectivity of this study is about on par with horoscopes. Women could have exaggerated or underestimated their sexual activity, but who cares? The main thing is that it sounds sensational. The scientists with straight faces covered their findings with biological factors. Supposedly, women with wider hips give birth more easily, and nature itself pushes them toward a more active reproduction. Nature, it seems, doesn't mind playing along with stereotypes. So don't be surprised if the next scientific paper is titled Shoe Size and Infidelity or Nose Length and First Date Success. For now, just take note of this amazing scientific fact. By the width of a woman's hips, you can supposedly estimate how likely your first date is to end in success. In France, a huge step forward was made. Scientists successfully tested for the first time artificial blood grown from stem cells. This event can rightly be called a breakthrough in medicine, as it concerns a technology that could one day save millions of lives. Researchers from Pierre and Marie Curie University in Paris began by taking bone marrow samples from volunteers and isolating hematopoietic stem cells. Using special molecules to guide the differentiation process, they managed to grow fully functional red blood cells. The cells were then transfused back into the volunteers, and the results exceeded expectations. Even after almost a month, most of the cultivated red blood cells continued to perform their main task, transporting oxygen, just as effectively as real blood. According to the head of the study, Luke Dowey, the results show that the creation of an unlimited reserve of blood for transfusion is no longer far off. This means that in future humanity may no longer have to worry about shortage of donor blood. It could be produced in laboratories, ensuring safety and high quality. Of course, the technology still needs improvement, increasing the speed of the cell production and reducing costs. But scientists are confident this is a task that for coming years it will all be solved, and once solved, millions of people around the world will gain a chance at survival. This news is about the successful testing of artificial blood was published 15 years ago, but I haven't heard that hospitals have stopped experiencing shortage of donor blood. Most likely progress has not advanced by leaps and bounds. What a pity. What do you think about it? I'm really curious to hear your thoughts, my friends. Share them down in the comments. I'll be reading them all.